Welcome, Silver Star families. The presentation you are about to view will discuss the traditional model of education, both social, emotional, and academic, and how we've transformed into more of a trauma-sensitive approach when working with your students. The three questions that we will focus on throughout this presentation are: how did staff adjust to the shift from a traditional model and continue to implement and support students while implementing a trauma-sensitive model? The next question is, what about discipline and consequences? Do those exist? And the last question is, how do families and other individuals or groups fit into understanding and implementing this model? What does trauma mean? That's a good question. It's something that can be complex and are thought of as complex. Some people might have three simple answers, as like a severe accident, rape, or a natural disaster, as defining what trauma means. In reality, trauma can mean many things. It can mean somebody that gets lost in the mall, lost in the forest, falls down off their bicycle while they're riding it, um, experiences physical abuse, observing or part of it, um, and having it happen to them. There's many things that trauma can represent. There's really no one definition of what a traumatic event could be or what a traumatic event could mean to a student. What I say is, I really strongly believe that most students or all students have either observed or personally experienced a traumatic event in their life. So when we're working with students, it is especially important to think of every student not knowing if they have a trauma background or not, because those aren't always disclosed, to really remember that we should always be sensitive to what the student could be coming to us with, even if we don't know their past. And if they maybe they haven't experienced trauma, but still supporting students in a way that they feel understood, comfortable, cared for, and that they have an adult that they can come to and share things with and not feel that they're going to get in trouble or some other consequence or um, other involvement with any other agency or higher leadership or administrative individual. For something that they feel like they need to talk to the teacher about. But trauma is something that is so widespread and so big, there's not just a couple words that can explain it. Trauma is something that shuts down the development of brains. It puts blocks in the students' brains and creates toxic stress for students when they've experienced trauma. That is when the child is losing the development that they're needing for properly, you know, developing with their peers. Instead, their brain is putting in these blocks because of this traumatic event that has occurred. And they're trying to forget it, or their body's going into the flight, fight, or freeze mode. Children that have experienced trauma have blocked out the experiences, and then they have an adverse response to their development. So typically areas that are concerning are growth, development, and practice of the crucial development milestones that the age and stage range are identified with are areas that students that have trauma or have experienced trauma in the past struggle in. But again, trauma doesn't mean one, two, three things, such as I mentioned before. It's a widespread um, meaning. And I think that if we begin to develop an understanding that, trauma isn't something, like I mentioned, as like a traumatic event that was harmful, or rape, or a natural disaster, that there's much more than that, then I really think we'll be able to support our students with the best trauma sensitive approach that we can. So, after discussing what trauma is and how widespread trauma is, the approach of shifting from a traditional mindset and education philosophy to a trauma sensitive approach is difficult. And it really begins with the staff in the school. They are the ones that have your students for 6 hours a day and are with them through good, bad, and challenging times. So we really began this journey about 3 years ago, and it's taken a while. This isn't something that you can take a magic wand to and say, hey, we know it all. The beginning was we chose 3 books that would focus on trauma, and 3 books that we focused on were Help for Billy, a beyond consequences approach to helping challenging children in the classroom. The next book is The Trauma Informed School, a step by step implementation guide for administrators and school personnel. And the last book is Lost and Found, helping behaviorally challenging students. And while you're at it, all the others. All these 3 books just have the basis of creating a mindset shift from traditional approach to a trauma sensitive approach and what we're looking to implement at Silver Star. We really wanted staff to have a well-rounded knowledge. And so we are taking the information from the readings and we're incorporating it to our practices and collaborative conversations as a staff, and really becoming and working hard towards becoming a trauma sensitive staff through role playing and through understanding and observing other students throughout Evergreen School District and being able to help with applying interventions that we think and what we've read about and collaborated on as best practices through video and through hands-on learning in the field of Evergreen School District and other elementary schools in our district. We really believe that the beginning of any shift in mindset, especially something that is so sensitive as a trauma sensitive approach, is really building those relationships. And the role of the staff is providing relationships that are meaningful, trustworthy, caring, loving, understanding, and predictable. Because in the end, these areas of life are what the student is missing and therefore is having a difficult time coping with life without these normal and appropriate social emotional responses from an adult or other caregiver that is constantly there for them. As I mentioned above, trauma is a widespread thing. So, for example, a traumatic event could be a child falling off their bike. And if there's no caring adult there to help them get back up and say, hey, it's okay, let's keep trying again, that could be something that scars them, that in their memory, in their mind, there's a block now. There's something, some internal fear that there was no one there for me. I was on the ground. Maybe my knees were bleeding, my arms were bleeding. I was scared. Maybe I was cold. There's so many pieces to it that really students that when we're shifting to this trauma sensitive approach, the relationship is really what's going to be the most important with our staff. We can read everything, every book. We can continue to take classes in professional development and be on top of trauma sensitive approaches. But if we don't have those meaningful, caring, and genuine relationships to connect with our students, we don't have anything. We aren't there yet. So really, it's building those relationships. Some examples of ways that are just relationship building activities are they could look something like spending 1 to 2 minutes with a child for 10 days in a row, and just talking with them about things that they enjoy. Nothing academic, just things that they enjoy, getting to know who they are and getting to connect with them on a personal level, and nothing that has to do with academics. It could also look like creating opportunities for small groups of your class to come and join you for lunch, or you joining them in the cafeteria for lunch. I mean, there are so many kids that go home to maybe a parent or maybe an older sibling or maybe a sibling that they attend elementary school with. But we don't know what they go home to. We are here to support our students at our school. Um, and we want to provide the best support that we can here. So having those strong relationships and those adult connections that are genuine and caring and make a student feel, rest assured and safe, that is what we are aiming to do. That is our mission, and that becomes above all, if we don't have those strong relationships, then we are not going to be able to get them to successfully perform academically or even be as, a strong social emotional individual. Starting with the relationships is where we need to start and begin. And that's really where we've looked at with our students and our staff, is building those relationships and making sure that students know that they are cared about and that we think the world of them and we want the best for them, even when they're having the hardest of days. The next part is really focusing on personalized academic learning. So when you were in school, there might have been like a set of, here's your packet. This is what you're going to do. Everyone's going to do the same thing. And, it's not a one size fits all type of curriculum. Students are not one size fits all creatures. They are individuals. They have individual needs, individual experiences that they've experienced, and individual knowledge base, and also individual skill set. So, why would we give them something that is a one size fits all approach when they need something that is personalized? If we look at the the approach, the definition that the district leaves us, they talk about um, it being something that I'll read. It says personalized learning, as defined by the International Association of K-12 Online Learning, is tailoring learning for each student's strengths, needs, and interests, including enabling student voice and choice in what, how, when, and where they learn, to provide flexibility and support to ensure mastery of the highest standards possible. So, for example, when we have a student that just doesn't seem like they're connecting with the academics and they're struggling to make any connection or show any interest, we need to dig deep and find what they're interested in. If it's trains, if it's Vietnam, if it's Pokemon, whatever that is, if we can get the student engaged and bought in and ready to learn and at least try to learn, we have something. If we don't try to dig deep and get to that root and what they believe in and what they think they can do, academically, they are not going to be able to perform. We're going to continue to push a rock that continues to slide down the hill and doesn't make any progress. And eventually, you're going to get tired, and that student is going to get upset, and it's not going to end well. So, having that personalized academic approach is essential with trauma sensitive work. We are all individuals. I wouldn't ask, you, sir, in the audience, to come and do my job and trade with me tomorrow. Hey, ready to go work with behaviors? Good luck. Here you go. And that's also why I don't have a substitute when I'm gone. But, that's where I'm coming from. We have to be real with our students. I'm not expected to go into my principal's office and sit in her chair for the day and complete her task like she does, because that's where she performs best at. And that's where her knowledge base is coming from. So we need to treat our students the same way and give them those choices and those same expectations that we would give ourselves. Something that a quote that I use frequently from Dr. Ross Green, and one of the books that we read, Lost and Found, I mentioned above. Kids do well if they can. If kids do not feel like they have enough knowledge, or they are going to make a fool of themselves, or anything that is going to get in their way of performing what you are wanting them to perform, you will just see their body begin to sink. And that is when you have lost them and they are disengaged. And most likely it's going to be a very, very difficult path to get them back, if at all. So, really, that personalized learning is essential to the trauma sensitive approach. It really goes hand in hand with building the relationships and getting to know your students on an individual level. All right, so as we move on and continue our journey to learn about the shift from the traditional model to the trauma sensitive approach that we are implementing at Silver Star, our next part that we're going to discuss is, you know, people say, the student did this problem choice or behavior. What's the consequence? What's happening? My answer to that is, let's talk about that. I'm going to be brief on the past because I think the past is something that is no longer part of what the present of what we're doing at Silver Star. We are all about teaching and reteaching, and I think that the past is something that is always good to know about, so we don't keep recreating or redoing it. But I think it's something that I will touch briefly on. The zero tolerance policy is a form of response to consequence and practices that creates a concerning and numerous barriers to students accessing education. The zero tolerance policy was derived in the 1990s by Congress and several states that came together in an approach to reduce school violence, gun violence. So, if we think about this policy really did not have the whole child in mind. It was to me, it kind of sounds like a large band-aid, put over. They were trying to figure out something, and I get it. Their hands are kind of tied at a point. They need to make a choice, and this sounded like something that worked. The only problem is people began using it as a form of consequences. All right, well, you did this action, so now I'm going to suspend you for X amount of days or one day or whatever it looked like. So we were then sending kids home and doing a form of exclusion from education. Sometimes the suspension didn't really warrant, the problem choice or behavior didn't really warrant the use of the zero tolerance policy. I think some administrators, I know my administrator even attested to me at one point that, that was the norm of the district. She knew many people in the district that used it not in the right light or in the right form. It was something that was used because the child had, done so many choices and they were like, all right, this is the next thing, they're out. It was a quick fix for the time being. For the time the child is out of the school, is a quick fix. When the child comes back to school, I'm going to tell you what that was going to look like. The child was either going to be happy that they were gone and had kind of like a vacation or a long extended week or weekend. They probably got to play video games or hang out with their friends or other family members or watch movies or do whatever they wanted to do. Um, they're going to be angry, or they're going to be angry with you, and they're going to create more problems for you and escalate situations that never were escalated before they had the suspension. Or they're going to make the same choice because they know what the predictable response is going to be from you. You will suspend them. So, really, I do not see any positives in the zero tolerance policy. Like I said before, I see where they were coming from. I understand it, but I just feel like the zero tolerance policy was something that was a quick fix and a large bandage. So um, let's dive into how Silver Star is changing the zero tolerance policy and what we do. So students receive communication forms. They can also be referred to as referrals, but we call them communication forms. And rightfully so, we are communicating with you to home. Um, So we want to communicate the problem that happened or the trace that happened at school with home so that the family knows what happened. And we also want to sit down with the student because, even if you do sit down with your student or you do not sit down with your student, know that there will be a staff member that does sit down with the student. So either myself, our principal, or our assistant principal, or our school counselor most likely will sit down with the student and have a conversation. We'll discuss, what happened, what could have happened, what should have happened, and kind of make a plan. If these are repeat behaviors or choices that we're seeing in similar or same areas, there might be a reteaching for the student. So that could look like, making it right with an apology. That could be looking like making an expectation sign for the cafeteria. That could be looking like a many, many, many things, many different options for reteaching. We definitely are not into suspension, though. That's something that we are not into doing. So instead, we have students at our school, and we have an embedded calm room within our school that both teachers and students can access. We actually prefer teachers to take students to the calm room so they're able to work on de-escalating with the student and still building that therapeutic rapport and relationship with them. But if that isn't possible, then myself or the school counselor or one of our administrators is also available to take the student out of the classroom for a short amount of time. And that looks like the student reflects for either 5 to 10 minutes, thinks about the choices that they made, the timer goes off. We talk about what happened, why they're out of the classroom. Then we discuss how we're going to get back to the classroom, so the plan. After that, we walk them back to the classroom. They make it right with whoever was affected, whether it be the teacher, other students, things like that. And they join back into class with their teacher saying, "I'm happy that you're back into class." So it's always very positive, and we're always wrapping around the student and just saying, hey, we care about you. We want the best for you, and we want to make sure that you're okay and you're regulated before you're back into class. Another nice thing about the calm room is that all of the same tools that I'm about to mention that are found in our calm spots throughout our school and every student visited space are found also in our calm room. So students can use those similar tools that I'm going to mention while they're in the calm room working on regulating as well. So another piece that we've added are universal calm spots. So any student visited space throughout our school, whether it be a classroom or the cafeteria, the office, music, PE, library, any student visited space, instructional coach's office, principal's office, assistant principal's office, counselor's office, anywhere that there are students visiting that space, there are calm spots or calm spots with calm tools in them that are all the same. There might be additional calm tools put out by the teacher of that space, but we want to make sure that all students have access to at least the same 4 to 5 tools so that there is something that they always are feeling comfortable and used to working with. So in these calm spots, there's going to be a calming glitter jar that helps with breathing and just kind of getting ourselves more grounded and relaxed. There's some calming shapes, breathing shapes. There's a picture of a triangle, a star, and a square, and those just help kids follow the lines and do some deep breathing. There's a stress ball. Kids love to do that when they're feeling angry or upset and kind of, tense up their muscle and just, you know, um, squeeze on the ball. There's a sensory rectangle. It's actually one of my favorite tools, and the kids really like rubbing it on, brushing kind of their forearm or top part of their arm, and also their palm of their hand, and just feeling it. It's just a calming, relaxing tool to use in the kit. So those are the approaches that we use at Silver Star as far as helping kids regulate and get to a better place when they're feeling upset, frustrated, irritated, angry, and still trying to stay in the classroom. And then, of course, if they need to leave the classroom, using the calm room that's embedded in the school. The paradigm shift can be a difficult concept to understand and perceive when it comes to shifting from a traditional approach to a trauma-sensitive model. And we really hope that in our work throughout our school that we are never leaving any questions or wonderings or any unknown knowledge or education about why we've made this shift. When a family comes to our school, we want to be transparent in our work. We want the family to know that if they walked around our school, that the expectation is they are seeing caring, loving adults connecting with students and just meeting them where they're at. And the same goes with our families. We want those strong relationships with you too. We want to be open and we want to have open communication and to be able to share ideas and collaborate about your student and to not feel afraid or worried or ashamed or embarrassed or like the school's against you. We want to have close relationships with you because you are a crucial and critical part to the success of your student. If it wasn't for you, your student wouldn't be here. You're the parent. Um, we want you here. We want you to be involved as much as you possibly can. We want you to know that at any point your child is getting their needs met due to the model that we've implemented, the trauma sensitive approach that we've implemented. An idea that we've thought about is the similar model of a curriculum night where you go into your students' classroom and they discuss what types of things they'll be learning and different parts of the year they'll be learning. We've also thought about having kind of like a social emotional night that talks about the trauma sensitive work that we're doing at Silver Star. We think that you guys coming in and being able to listen to myself, our school counselor, and administrators, any staff that would like to present about trauma sensitive work that we're doing in the school. We want you guys to be on the same page. So when your student comes home and says, hey, I spent time with Miss Marissa in the calm room today, I had a hard day. Hey, I made a plan. I did my reflection. We talked about it. I made a plan and I went back to class and the rest of my day was awesome. We want you to know that your child was still in the best hands and still being taken care of and still actually receiving an education, even though they weren't physically in their classroom. Because just as I spoke in the beginning of the presentation, your child's social emotional health is so important to us, just like their academic knowledge and success is so important to us as well. They definitely go hand in hand. And if they're experiencing trauma and behavior and they're not sure what to do, most likely they're going to be struggling in academics. So we want to make sure that you guys are knowing and on the same page and are aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So maybe you can implement and take some of the things that we are teaching your students at our school into your home and work with your students in our home with what's going on at school. And also, that I just want to say families aren't all the only groups that come and visit our school. We also have community board members that stop by and planned and unplanned visits, as well as our superintendent of our district, John Steach. He comes through um, randomly and just checks out and says hi. And we also have community visits that come through. And during any of those visits, we always want to be the genuine, transparent Silver Star that we know we are. We want to make sure that we are showing people that this is our school, this is our home. We care about these kids. They are our family. We are all family at the school. So through those tight relationships that we have with our students, understanding trauma, understanding that there is no magic wand, there is no quick fix, there is no one size fits all for education or academics. Personalized learning is where it's at. And it's something that we are working hard to improve upon, and we are working hard to engage and implement in your students' classrooms. And we just want you to know that when you're visiting Silver Star, we hope that you leave feeling understood and comfortable and knowledgeable in our trauma sensitive approach, and that we have shifted so we're meeting your students' needs the best that we can. Thank you for your time, and it's been a pleasure presenting to you.